Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, How to Build a Business Case for Online Employee Training. My name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with BizLibrary, and I'll be the host for today's session. Before we get started, I want to go through just a couple of housekeeping items. First, what you should see on your screen. On the left-hand side of the screen, this is the webinar viewer. So this is where you'll see the content that we're sharing with you today. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is the control panel. So this is where you can join the audio portion of today's webinar, and you can also communicate with us through the question box. The default mode for the control panel is for it to collapse. If you want to open the control panel back up, simply click the orange box with the white arrow in it, and it'll expand for you. All of today's attendees are in listen-only mode. You can join the audio portion of today's webinar either through the teleconference line. You can also listen through your speakers. If you're going to listen through your speakers, I recommend either using a pair of headphones or a headset to get the best audio quality. I like to keep things pretty informal, so if you have any questions or discussion points throughout today's webinar, feel free to send those over at any time. I'll try to weave them in as it relates to what we're discussing in the session, and then I'll also leave some time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. I am recording today's webinar, so I'll make a link to the webinar recording as well as the slides and follow-up information available on our blog after today's session. So that's bizlibrary.com/bizblog. I'll also email out the webinar recording, the slides, and follow-up information in a follow-up email that you'll receive within 24 hours. Happy to say that today's session has been approved for 1 hour CE credit for all of you HR professionals attending. I'll make a link to the completion certificate available at the end of today's webinar. I'll also email out a link to the completion certificate to all of today's attendees in that follow-up email that you'll receive within 24 hours. The most important thing is the activity ID number. That's what you'll need to record with HRCI. Again, my name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with BizLibrary. I graduated from the University of Missouri-Columbia with a degree in journalism. I've been working in the training and development industry now for about 5 years. I'm pretty active in social media, so I tweet on behalf of BizLibrary at BizLibrary, and then also at my own Twitter account at JessLPetrie. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so I like to share a lot of articles and discussions around training and development, HR, and marketing in general. So if you're on either of those social networks, would love it if you'd reach out and connect. Presenting with us today is Chris Osborne. Chris is the VP of Marketing for BizLibrary. He's also worked in a consulting capacity with a Paris-based leadership development consulting firm. We helped organizations design and implement leadership and executive development programs. He's been performing learning, development, and training functions formally since 2000 and informally for organizations since 1987. Chris has also taught courses on conflict resolution and discrimination at the graduate program at WashU in St. Louis. Prior to Chris's move into the business sector, he practiced law in the areas of labor, employment, and business litigation for over 12 years. He graduated from WashU School of Law with honors in 1987. So you can also find Chris on social media. So he's on Twitter at Chris Osborne STL, and he's also on LinkedIn. To give you just a little bit of background on BizLibrary, BizLibrary provides the industry's largest and fastest growing collection of high-quality training videos and e-learning courses covering every topic area imaginable. Whatever training your employees need, you'll find it with BizLibrary. So content and learning technology all in one place. We also provide a cloud-hosted LMS and social learning applications to help organizations streamline and simplify important learning and performance processes. Our solutions have been recognized by trainingindustry.com, eLearning Magazine, and Brandon Hall. All right, so enough about us. I have a couple of poll questions for today. So I have one to kind of kick things off. You should see it pop up on your screen in just a minute. All right, so this first poll question is, the most common objection from senior executives about learning initiatives is A, training and development does not impact the bottom line, B, the cost of training is more than the benefit, C, things are fine the way that they are, or D, something else.
Hey Jessica, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I am fine. So,
Good deal.
yeah, this is one of my very favorite webinars. We were talking about that before we get started today because it's a way of thinking about training and development that those of us in this space don't naturally gravitate to. So it's always one that I think we get a chance to really, I think, really help in. This is a place where I think all of us can use a little refinement sometimes, and this is a really great first poll question because this really gets right to kind of what we're trying to get at here is overcoming this objection from senior leaders.
Well, and a lot of the key elements that we're going to talk about today are relevant whether you have a program in place already or you're simply trying to get buy-in for another learning initiative. So it's really things that you can apply across the board, whether you're just getting started or you're actually looking to kind of initiate some other learning and development opportunities for your employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'll go ahead and close this poll out, share the results. So it looks like we've got 32% said the cost of training is more than the benefit, and 32% also said something else. So if you let us know what that something else is, that'll help us refine this poll a little bit. 20% said things are fine that the way that they are, so kind of contentment with the status quo, and then 17% said training and development does not improve bottom line result.
Well, in the top two on the poll, the 17% and the 32%, I mean the top two, the way you've got them organized here, are so closely related, and that's really the key, ultimately, is getting senior executives to understand that training and development does impact the bottom line. For those of us that are attending the webinar, for those of us that are in this space, that's kind of one of those, well, of course it impacts the bottom line. We get it because we see that connection. We understand the connection. It's intuitive for us. There isn't any question in our mind. And I know that I struggled with why senior financial people and senior leaders didn't make the same connection that I did. But they don't. They don't gravitate that way. So that's part of what today's session is about how to help them make the same connection that we make. And it's really important. It's real important to be able to do that.
Yeah, and some of this something else is that people have shared, if that's even, I don't think that's grammatically correct, obviously, but some of the things that people shared is there's no money available for training, time and a lean staff, so we're short people and we have struggles to take time away from day-to-day duties to do training. Another ad was it takes too long. Our employees think that training's ineffective and they don't understand why we ask questions. And then, let's see, hard to prove the benefit with data. So, some
okay, good.
else.
Yeah, and we've got something on each one of those as well. And that's one reason I want to hear about that something else. We're going to do a video blog. We'll record one later today, and we'll probably take a lot of these pieces and the something else and weave those into something on the video blog. So we'll address a lot of those. If we don't get to them in the webinar today, we'll cover them then. So, all right.
All right, Chris, if you want to cover what we're going to, yep, you got it. All right.
Yeah, so there are 5 elements in a business case. And when we were doing research on this, Jessica and I batted this around quite a bit. This is what emerged in sort of the best cases, sort of about how to build a business case. Now, you may find a slight variation on these in various places, but in one form or another, these are the elements that go into a business case. Now, when you're presenting your business case to senior leadership, I'm not talking about writing 2 and 3 pages on each one of these bullet points. This is an executive summary type document that is no more than a page in length. So you're looking at 3 or 4 bullet points on each one of these with supporting information with the detail behind it when asked about it. Okay, if you think about your CEO, they're just going to want you to top line it for them. Is this going to make us money or not? And okay, it's going to make me money. Now explain why. And that's what this is about. Okay, so you're going to do a scenario analysis. We'll explain what each one of these means. Cause-effect analysis. Going to explain the key performance indicators, and this gets back to one of those something else. It's hard to find the data, so that's a big part of the business case. The risks of the status quo, and there are risks with taking actions. There's no question about that. We all get that. But there are also risks with standing pat, especially in this marketplace. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And then you want to demonstrate alignment with organizational goals. So that's the key pieces. And then the last piece, which isn't necessarily an element of the business case per se, but it's really important that you anticipate and have ready a way to overcome the most common objections from your senior executives. You work with them, you know how they're wired, you know how they think, you know what they're going to gravitate to. So don't wait for the objections to come and be forced to kind of go, I'm going to get back to you on that. Make sure that you have, at least for the most common objections, yeah, I thought you might ask that question, and here's the answer. Now, if they come up with one out of left field, and they may, then that's okay. You're going to have to get back to them. But be as prepared as you possibly can. Okay? So one of the things that we've found, Burson by Deloitte, by the way, if you don't look at any of their research, you should. They produce some really great stuff. But back in 2011, I think that's when they published this report. In fact, I know that it is. It was 2011. Or 2010, I'm sorry. It was 2010. They published some really amazing data that lays out, from a bottom line perspective, business benefits, how organizations with a strong learning culture outperform their peers. And this is the sort of information that you need to get in front of senior leaders. Innovation, 46% more likely to be first to market. Productivity, 37% greater employee productivity. I mean, that's a huge one, isn't it? Time to market, we're 34% better able to respond to customer needs, 26% greater ability to deliver quality products. Skills for the future. I mean, in this marketplace, if you have CFO, CEO, chief operating officers that understand that, we're more prepared to meet future demand. Oh my gosh. And then the last one, 17% more likely to be market share leaders. This is the sort of information that people in the C-suite, chief executive officers, chief financial officers respond to. With this kind of information, you've got their attention. So real quickly, just to go back over those 5 elements. Got a scenario analysis, the cause-effect analysis. You want to have the key performance indicators for each anticipated benefit of the training program. And just like Jessica said, whether you're sort of trying to relaunch a program or get support for a new initiative or starting from scratch, you need to make sure that you can identify how you're going to measure the success, identify the risks of status quo, and make sure you can demonstrate how what you're doing will support organizational goals. Jessica, I think we have one more short poll question. Is that right?
We do, yep. One more short poll question. You should see it pop up on your screen. In your organization, what are your biggest challenges with change? Because when it comes down to is really, most of the time, we're trying to implement a change. So whether it's through the behavior of your employees or if it's something of your organization's culture. So is it A, timing, this just isn't a good time, B, budget, C, lack of senior leadership support, D, lack of employee buy-in or participation, or E, something else?
Yeah, and this gets right to what we were talking about with the business case, that element that isn't necessarily a part of the business case, but anticipating and being prepared for objections. And Jessica's exactly right. If you think about what we're trying to do with training and development, it is about change, isn't it? Because we're trying to take the organization from one level of performance to a new level of performance. The same thing with employees, right? We've got a current state of performance, and we've got a desired state of performance. We're trying to move from one place to another. We're trying to change. We're trying to improve behaviors. We're trying to change organizational behaviors and performance. So in a very fundamental sense, those of us who are in learning development and are passionate about this, we've been change agents our entire career, whether we want to, whether we've seen it that way or not. And this is a big piece of it. So these are going to be pretty common objections, and these are ones that we see all the time. So in one form or another, these are likely to be looming in the background somewhere. So Jessica, why don't you take us through these results?
Yep, I'll go through them quickly. So it looks like the majority of today's attendees with us said lack of senior leadership support, so 37%. 29% said lack of employee buy-in or participation, which are both closely related. 16% budget, 12% timing, and 6% something else.
And I would suggest that when we look at the poll results from the prior poll, that idea of lack of value, it's all tied right into that lack of senior leadership support. Because if you think about it, if your senior leaders understand the value, they see the connection between what you're attempting to do and the bottom line benefit, they're going to be all in behind it, right? So this is all connected. This is all very, very definitely connected. So, and that's what I hope we're going to give you some really good ideas today on how to make those connections. At least that's my objective. I hope we can do that for you anyway.
Right. So basically, Chris, I passed the ball over to you, but we outlined those 5 key elements. So we said scenario analysis, cause-effect analysis, KPIs for each benefit, risk of the status quo, and alignment with organization's goals. So we're actually going to start off with number 4, because it is the biggest objection that we see as we're bringing new clients on board, or we see clients that are implementing a new initiative.
Yeah, Jessica's right. I mean, step back and think about it. How many of us work in an organization that really likes change? Really, truly? Probably not many. I can honestly say I've never worked in an organization that loves change or does change really well every time. It's just, I've never been in one. Now, I will say BizLibrary is probably the most agile organization I've ever worked in, and we can define that a whole range of different ways. And if you come to our client conference in September, we'll joke about that and have some fun with it. But a fear of change is a big, big problem for a lot of organizations. And we find that when we're talking to organizations and we're talking to people just like you who say, we really need to train our employees. I know we need to do this. I know we need to improve performance, but we just can't do it. I refer to that, excuse me, as the yeah buts. Yeah buts. And yeah, we need to do it, but. And it's this sort of, inertia is a real difficult thing. And there's risks with the status quo that we have to understand, and we need to lay that out for senior management. So if we don't do this training program, if we don't move aggressively to improve skills, what are the risks? What could happen to our bottom line? Going back to that wonderful data that Jessica provided for us with, improved profitability, market share, innovation, skills for the future. How does that impact our bottom line if we stand pat? Could we lose customers? What if our customer service skills erode in this marketplace? Do we lose market share? Could some future costs associated with employee development and training be avoided if the investment is made today? The risks may be different depending upon where you are, what your organization is doing, but this is an important element. And in the building of your business case, this would be the 4th piece, as Jessica pointed out, that you would present. But from our perspective, this is the first intellectual hurdle that you have to wrestle with and come to grips with. Because once you understand the risks of the status quo and can articulate them clearly, you begin to understand pretty clearly, I think, what you have to move to in terms of what you're doing. This is a great quote from Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, the Red Queen. It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. And it feels that way sometimes, doesn't it? We are running and running and running and working so hard just to maintain. What's it going to take to improve? And that's sort of part of this, thing that we have, this inertia that binds us to the status quo frequently. It's, what's it going to take? I mean, my gosh, we're working so hard now. And frequently, it's not as hard to improve as we think in the end. So that's the first thing we've got to come to grips with. So now let's build our business case, okay? So I'm going to start off with scenario analysis, but I want to begin this with a little bit of a disclaimer. Now, the research that we conducted, and if you go out and do research, you're going to find this, so I just wanted to make it very clear. The research you're going to find is going to tell you that you want to do 3 different analyses. You want to do the most likely results, you're going to present best case scenario, and you want to present worst case scenario. And you build your business case with those 3 elements put in, and you present that to senior management. I'm not going to recommend that, and here's why. Let's assume that Jessica and I are negotiating. We're talking about a car. We're going to, I'm going to sell Jessica a car, and I tell her that I've got my car for sale, and I'll sell it to her for between, let's say $8,000 and $10,000. Jessica, what number did you just hear?
Well, you're selling it to me, right? So I hear actually $8,000 because I want to buy it for less.
Exactly. All Jessica heard was her best case scenario. That's all she heard. And that's exactly what's going to happen to your senior leaders. When you put all 3 pieces together, most likely results, worst case scenario, and best case scenario, the only scenario senior leaders will hear is best case scenario. So when your program delivers the most likely results, the results that you anticipate, the results that you believe in, the results that you can buy off on, the results that you'll commit to, all you're going to hear is, why didn't we get blah, blah, blah? Because you told us about that. Well, yeah, I told you that was the best case scenario. There was a 10% likelihood we'd hit that. Yeah, but didn't you, that you're going to end up having to defend your most likely results against your best case scenario. Don't do that. So present your most likely results. Here's what we believe is going to happen, and here's why. Worst case scenario, we're going to invest this time, this energy, this effort, this money, and we're still going to see this type of improvement. It's not going to be as much as most likely results, but we're still going to see improvement. Worst case scenario compared to most likely results. That's the way to lay out your business case. Those are the scenarios that you analyze. Those are the scenarios that are presented. Okay? That's how to do that. Do not go to best case scenario. Now, you should have those in mind. You should have an understanding of that, but do not present that to senior leadership. The next piece is the cause-effect analysis. And this is a part of a business case that we intuitively get. As learning and development professionals, this is the part of it that we just, we kind of go, well, of course there's a cause and effect. If I improve everybody's communication skills, the organization's going to perform at a higher level. There's definitely going to be a cause and effect. I mean, why doesn't everybody get that? Well, it's pretty easy to build a cause-effect analysis on what you would consider sort of hard skills training or compliance training, where you're reducing risk exposure, you're reducing incidents, you're improving safety, you're improving sales skills, you're improving whatever the case may be. It's more difficult sometimes to tie that cause-effect analysis to soft skills training, but you still have to do it, okay, which gets down to the next piece of the business case. But you really have to dive in and make sure that you're understanding it. So again, the idea here is we're attempting to build a program that actually improves our employees' ability to do the job, all right? So this gets to a focus. This gets to target. We are looking for ways to actually improve employees' performance in areas that are going to impact the bottom line, all right? this is, I can't emphasize this piece enough, because what we can do is we can provide training on 15, 16, 12, whatever topics, let employees go crazy. They can pick whatever they want, which sometimes isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if we don't have sort of a real target for employees, for instance, Chris, I need you to improve your skills in these 3 areas: building strategic relationships and partnerships, because improving your strategic relationships with industry analysts is going to improve our visibility. It's going to improve our brand, which is going to improve our ability to market, which will improve leads, which, I mean, you have to tie it piece by piece by piece that way. A good illustration of soft skills improvement. Let's say communication skills. We all need to improve communication skills, correct? So let's say one of the things that we're trying to improve from an organizational, an impact that results in financial benefit to the organization, let's say what we're trying to do is improve customer retention. How would improved communication skills on the part of your client services team improve customer retention? Well, what if they solve conflict better, negotiate better? What if they are able to communicate more clearly? Can you tie improved performance in those areas to improve customer service, customer retention? The odds are probably pretty good that you can. So where are you now? Where do you want to be? Let's improve. Let's identify the behaviors on the part of your team that you know impact customer retention and work on improving those behaviors. That's how you tie soft skills. That's how you tie soft skills to business impact. It's soft skills that are manifested in behaviors that are linked to bottom line impact. Jessica, do we have some questions that make sense to take here? I see a lot of stuff coming in chat, and I'm focused on the presentation here, and I just see them coming, so I'm not trying to read them.
Yeah, so actually we got a question asking for an example of a soft skills impact measurement. So you were right on key with that one. We did get a great add-in from Randall. He said it's also important to not confuse correlation with causation when presenting to senior management. It's important to focus on if-then scenarios, which I think you speak to well in the example that you gave, Chris.
Yeah, and Randall, that's actually a really, really good way to state it. So if my explanation wasn't clear, Randall does a great job of clarifying that. Focus on if, then, and he's right. And that's also a great way to get to the risks of the status quo. If we don't do this, then this will happen. That is an absolutely brilliant way to get it and a real clear way to state it. So Randall, great clarification. I really really appreciate that. That's a good addition to the content here. Well done. All right. So when you think about business benefits, and this is part of the this cause-effect analysis, you really have 3 different layers of benefits to consider, and each one is important. And you just have to sort through the business benefit, the bottom line impact at each level. You got employee benefits. Our employees are going to have realized these benefits from the training program. What's this going to do to improve their performance? Is this going to be less disruptive? Are they going to be able to do X, Y, Z better? What are the company benefits? Are we going to have broad company improvement in various places? And then what are the financial benefits? Ultimately, the business case needs to end up in the far right-hand column. But you don't get there unless you have company benefits and, foundationally, employee benefits. Okay? So you need all 3 layers to build the business case. So you got to kind of think this through carefully. Now, you've got access to these slides. I'm not going to bore you by reading through all of this, but this is a great way to think through, when you're thinking through this, the cause-effect analysis, where the benefits lie, what they look like, and how they sort of cascade from the grassroots level, from employee level, to build company benefit, to result in financial benefits from your organization. And you got to think through carefully, what are the behaviors we need to improve in order to impact the bottom line on the organization? And that's really the focus. It's a focus on improved behaviors. And this gets back to the idea that we're really trying to drive business impact. We're trying to learn to support organizational agility so that we're better able to respond and react to rapidly changing market conditions. We can get new products out faster, reduce the time to market with products. We can do quality control checks faster, identify focus areas for the organization. One of the things that you see with organizations, particularly in this market, by the way, that are really starting to separate themselves from the competition are organizations that can really focus on improvement in 2 or 3 areas rather than trying to maintain a really broad focus. A good illustration of this right now, if you'll read what's happening to Samsung, they're struggling right now with some low-cost, oddly enough, low-cost competition. And if you just read about what's happening, that it's because of the focus, lack of focus on their part. It's an interesting case study. But what are the technologies or new approaches to drive better agility? What are things that we can do? Can we increase clarity? Can we increase organizational clarity? These are the kinds of things that can really begin to move you forward. One other big piece of this, and we saw a little bit of this early, is and I went here too. I'll be the first to admit this. When I first moved into sort of formal roles where I was responsible for employee development and training, I spent a lot of time worrying about return on investment. And you still see a lot of this in the marketplace. Well, we've got to have a certain return on investment. We've got to make sure that we're getting back the money that we're going to spend in this. And that's not really the way to get to a business case. It's a part of a business case, and that's the mistake that a lot of learning and development professionals make. You have to instead justify costs as an improvement in bottom line performance. In other words, we're going to justify the cost by an improvement in the quality of our service, by the quality of our product. We're going to justify the cost by improving the effectiveness of the organization. We're going to move faster. We're going to do things more efficiently. Job impact. It's got to be tied to business results. ROI is going to limit your conversation, and you're going to end up being pushed into a tactical place, not a strategic place. So stay away. ROI is important for you to understand, but don't include that as part of your business case. Here's an example. Again, you're going to have the ability to read over this, but this is just a real quick overview of how to get at a business benefit. Reduce, what we're trying to do is improve writing skills for account representatives and customer service reps, because they're costing us $50 a day to fix bugs, and what we want to do is make sure that our reps are communicating clearly to the tech team so we can get bugs fixed more quickly. The training costs the reps. So this is a great way to get at this. And you'll notice that in this way of presenting the business case, you'll notice that the focus here is total value gain. Now, costs are a part of it, but the idea here is value gained. And I love this bottom part of it here, these other factors. One of the things that we have spent a lot of time talking about in the training industry is isolating the effects of training. That's another part of this whole business case piece that I think is extremely important. Don't worry about trying to isolate training impact. What you want to do is look at all of the things in your organization that are going to happen to amplify the value and the impact of your training program. You want to find those things and leverage them, and that's what this helps illustrate a little bit. So again, you're going to be able to read this over and go through it. And I think it's a really interesting case study, so it's laid out in pretty good detail for you there. Okay, Jessica, anything else before I get into key performance indicators here?
Nope, I think we're good to keep moving forward. I added a few people have been giving some good comments that have been posting up in chat, so if you want to follow along in that as well, but you're good to keep moving.
All right, good. I'm going to get a quick drink there. Okay, so key performance indicators for each anticipated benefit. So the cause and effect analysis, you're going to want to make sure that what you're identifying is, so what as you're going through that, you want to identify all of the potential benefits for the pros training program, from the employee level to the company level to the financial level. So how are we going to benefit as a high-level organization from what we're trying to do? And I saw Jessica pose this question. It's a really good one. And you kind of want to think about, what will success look like? That's a big part of what that's about. Keep that, it's a complex analysis. And what you're attempting to get to is a simple answer to a complex problem. So simplicity is difficult to get to. In a lot of ways, simplicity is elegance. And in a way, that's a big part of what this business case, building an effective business case, is about. You provide a simple business case that makes an ironclad case for the investment. Well, that's hard to do. Simplicity is not easy. Don't ever think that we're attempting to say that it's not. But a good way to make sure that you are in a good spot here through your scenario analysis and cause-effect analysis is to step back and ask yourself, have we defined what success will look like? What will success look like? If you've done that, you're ready to ask the next question. How will we know? And that's what the key performance indicators for each benefit will do. What will success look like? We're going to have more freedom. We're going to have better control. We're going to have improved quality. We're going to have better speed to market. Whatever it is. But how will we know? So you want to identify the key performance indicator for the business problems you're trying to solve. And if the training works, how are we going to know it? So again, I don't want to imply in any way that this is something that is easy to get to. But the idea here is to provide a compelling, straightforward, simple business case. Okay? So don't confuse simplicity with easy. Michael Rochelle, who's a friend of the company, has a great line about this: complexity is the enemy. And that's the idea behind building a really good business case. You're going through the complexity. You're diving through it. You're weeding through it and analyzing it and understanding it. And you, on behalf of senior leadership, are taking all of this complexity and making it easy to digest so that you are presenting a simple, straightforward business case. So the purpose of those first two elements is to define what success will look like, and now we're going to explain how we're going to know it. And one of the things that's really important to understand here is I don't think you need to go create exotic new measurements for success. You are, in all probability, already measuring what's going on in your organization for the business problems you're trying to solve. Otherwise, you wouldn't know you had a problem, right? So in human resources, do we have openings that have been around too long? Are we having a difficult time getting enough candidates in for people to interview? Do we have too many employee relations problems? Do we have too many harassment complaints? In sales, are we not closing enough deals? Are we not looking at enough deals? I mean, there's a whole range of key performance indicators around common business problems that employee development and training can help you solve. So what are your current key performance indicators? Use those, because they're going to tell you where you've been, where you are, and as you begin to implement your training program, what will improved performance look like, and you can measure and track gains over time using the same indicators. And that way you've got an apples-to-apples direct line comparison and can prove the bottom line benefit of the program that you are providing. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Let's just say, for instance, you have 5,000 customers, and each customer is worth $20,000 a year. And if you increase customer retention by 1%, that's $1 million added to your bottom line. That's a really straightforward, easy way to get at the value of improving customer retention. So if the goal is to improve customer retention by 1%, what are the organizational behaviors that have to improve in order to do that? Which teams have to perform better? Which departments have to perform better? Which teams within those departments? And what are the individual behaviors that have to improve to support the team and department behaviors and move up to support the organizational behaviors? Again, it doesn't have to be complicated, but that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And there's a straightforward, easy way to measurement. And what's really amazing to me is how many measures are this straightforward to get at. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to get. It doesn't have to get that complex. Now, I mentioned earlier not to get too hung up on ROI, and that it's not always helpful to include ROI in your business case. That said, it is extremely important for us in the learning and development or HR training department to understand the ROI and have a good handle on the costs and cost considerations associated with the training programs and training initiatives that we are suggesting. So you have to make sure you have this information at hand. Again, going back to what I said earlier, you're providing a one-sheet overview, executive-type summary, but you have the detail there if you asked about it. So this is the detail. So make sure that you have this information available. Time away from job in the old program compared to time away from what are travel expenses. We're gonna move from 80% classroom to 80% online. It's going to save us this, the cost of losing employees due to the lack of ineffective training. Whatever the expected benefits are, again, going back to cause-effect analysis, what are the benefits? So make sure you have this ROI style analysis available as well to add on to the business benefits so you can explain it. The questions are there. If you've got CFOs involved in the decision-making process, they will go here at some point, so be prepared. This is going to be, I don't want to minimize this as a part of the work that you need to do, but what I do want to do is make sure that you understand that this doesn't need to be the center point of your business case. I don't know if that's making sense or not, but I hope it does. Okay, Jessica, it looks like we've got an interesting question from Deanne there. I think I'd kind of like to take. You mind going through that with us?
Sure, happy to. So she asked, getting leadership to make decisions is like pulling teeth. They want to do training but just aren't willing to implement anything. So how can we help move along the decision-making and implementation process?
Well, Deanne, that's actually the very question we're trying to address in today's session. Well, you can't do it. You can't get them to pull the trigger on a training program if the focus is here on costs, if the focus is on employees starting and finishing courses, if the focus is on the training program mechanics, okay? So what you have to do is step outside of that, and you have to go to the business case pieces across that we've talked about at the bottom. You really need to focus on those bottom line benefits. When you can prove to senior leadership that, look, if we don't do it, there are risks, okay? Identify the risks of the status quo. Going back to that great way of thinking about it, if we don't train, then we risk lack of profitability, employee turnover, whatever it is, and explain the risks in bottom line numbers of the status quo, because there's a bottom line number associated with those risks. And then flip that around. If, on the other hand, we invest X number of dollars in training and do this to address these two business problems, here's what we can expect. Here are the anticipated results. Here are the cause-effect analysis. Here's how we're going to know that we're going to be successful. We're going to use these key performance indicators to measure success, and we anticipate these will be the results. That's how you do it. This isn't, again, going back to what I said earlier, I don't want to imply that this is easy. It's not. But the objective is to make it simple. Simplify what can be a complex process. And it gets to this point. You've heard the old saw, analysis paralysis. A lot of organizations kind of get stuck there, and so our job as learning and development professionals is to help eliminate that. Look, let's cut through the nonsense here. We've got these two business problems. Employee development can help solve them. Here's how. Here's why we need to do it, and here's the benefit. That's the objective of this. That's the objective of building a business case. Rather than, doing this circular argument back and forth, bottom line it for people. That's how you get them to move. I love what you said there. They want to do training. So you've gotten them over a huge emotional and intellectual hurdle there to start with. That's really big. Okay. So then the final piece of this business case, which Deanna will really help, is to show clearly how what you're suggesting is aligned with the organizational goals. Okay. And alignment is not a situation where you sit down and say, okay, we're wanting to do these two things, and so now we've got the training set up, and here it goes, and we've got the courses assigned. Great, we're aligned. That's not what it is. Alignment is a process of continuous adjustment to keep the parts in their correct relative position, meaning that you are continuously examining progress along the way, along those key performance indicators, and helping employees and departments and teams make adjustments and improve the training and provide new content and facilitate additional ongoing continuous learning. That's the idea behind alignment. So, if you want to maintain an 85% client retention rate, if what we want to do is have that happen, you can't wait until the end of the year to look and see whether you got there. You got to be looking at that weekly and monthly. Are we at 84% or at 83%, or are we trending to 85%? If we're behind, what are the behaviors we need to improve to get to 85%? What development opportunities are there here to improve skills? If the department goal is to improve the handling of customer complaints within 90 days, we need to be looking at that all the time. What's our running 90-day? What's our running number? Well, we're at 105 days. Okay, we got to shave 15 days off this. What can we do? And what's the trend line look like? How are we doing? What can we do to improve the skills to help do this? What are the behaviors that are getting in the way? What are the roadblocks? I mean, this is a constant, continuous work to make sure that we get this done. And, as you're looking through this, what are the, again, going back to what we said before, what are the objections? What are the issues that you're going to run into? And these are questions that we see chief officers, senior executives, ask all the time. Well, will the employees use it? What are the costs? What's the value? And that's part of what the business case is about. And is the learning initiative relevant to our business needs? And that's a big part of what this business case is about. Now, as far as the employees participating or using it, there's a whole range of ways to sort out that. There's all kinds of ways to do it. You can test. You can do trials, you can build focus groups. There's a whole range of ways to prove employee participation. Employees typically are hungry for development opportunities. Your job is to make it available and explain the connection between their participation and job performance improvement. What's the connection between their job and this content? If you can make that connection for them, they're going to participate, okay? So here's some common resistance issues that we've seen and some success strategies that our clients have actually implemented. Again, you've got access to these slides, so I'm not going to bore you by going through all of these, but we've seen this work. We've seen these things happen. Communications, the not enough time, all of these things are legitimate. People have these resistance issues, and we've seen these strategies implemented and work very, very well. Organizations get around these all the time. Another thing that we've seen happen is, ask employees questions. Do you feel access to training would help you do your job more effectively? Would you like to see your company play a more active role? If you offered online training, would you take advantage of it? If how many courses would you take? I mean, these are the kind of pre-event or pre-program pieces of data that you can present. Well, if we did this, would our employees take advantage of it? Now, if you've got this kind of information to put in front of your leadership team, that's pretty compelling. You can do job support surveys too, to find out, make sure that what's happening in your training program is being, supported by your managers. Your manager support's a huge piece of this. Okay, so I just wanted to spend a second here summarizing kind of what's going on. We've got a lot of questions and a lot of discussion points in here. Oh, I love this. This is an ad from Pfizer. Like it said, if you think training is expensive, try ignorance. That is so good. You're exactly right. So the key points I wanted to kind of leave you with here before I turn it over to Jessica and then we take some questions. Don't get stuck on ROI only. It's important. I don't want to minimize that. It's important. But you want to communicate the cost justification by really focusing on and emphasizing the strategic impact of your training initiatives on the bottom line. That's really the key to this whole thing. That is the number one key point, is emphasizing the bottom line impact. So, again, going back to our two really foundational questions, what will success look like and how will we know it? Which begins with scenario analysis, the cause effect, the key performance indicators, risk of status quo, alignment with organizational goals. If you can explain that clearly and concisely, you've built a great business case. You're there. You've gotten away from ROI. And you're justifying the cost by proving the benefit in showing that strategic impact of what you're attempting to do. And talk about getting to the strategic table. Now you're a strategic partner. That's what this is about. That's how you get senior leadership buy-in to this. You don't get there by talking just about ROI. You don't get there by talking strictly about how many courses we're going to take and how many courses are going to get launched. Those are important numbers. Those are important things to keep in mind, but that's not a part of your business case. The next thing you have to do is you got to plan, you got to organize. Now, this is coming from a person who is a chronic, disorganized human, and I don't plan very well. That's why I have such a wonderful team around me who do keep me organized and who force me to plan. So you have to understand your current situation, where you want to be, and when, and how you're going to get there. This Jessica just put a smile. Success is not an accident. Organizations that hit their strategic goals and have great training cultures and have employees that are engaged and managers that know how to deliver the goods on training and learning and development professionals that understand how to make a business case. These things are not accidents. These things happen because people like you understand how to make these connections, understand how to lead initiatives, and understand how to make these connections for senior leaders, and understand how to facilitate and lead learning, okay? And that, don't leave it to chance. Just please don't do that. It won't just happen organically. Ultimately, learning will become organic in your organization, but you have to plan and organize to get it there. So understand where you are and where you want to be, and begin to identify those performance gaps and how to fill them. And you're going to eventually get there, okay? It takes time, it takes patience, it takes a methodical approach to make that happen. Then know the facts and risks, because there are, and be prepared to back it up with data. Okay? One of the things that Dean Pichet, our president and CEO, it makes him nuts when we say this to him. I feel, but if you can say, here's the information that supports my position, he is all there, even if he doesn't like it. But CEO, facts and data, that's what you have to do. And then make sure you communicate how your plan will benefit the overall organizational goals. And I'm a big believer in the why of things, but when you're building a business case, the why is already decided. A business case is about the how, and that's the objective. How? How will the training and development program and plan that I am suggesting benefit this organization? If you'll do those four things, you are there. You will be seen as a strategic partner because you're going to be one, and that's the idea. All right, Jessica, I'm going to get a drink and be quiet, turn it back over to you, and we've got time for questions, I think.
Yep, sounds good, Chris. Hopefully it's a work-appropriate drink. Just kidding.
Well, yeah, actually, sadly, I will say that it is today. Yeah.
Right. I'm just Just messing with you. But so I have some recommended resources for all of you. This first is a course series. So all of the videos within this are less than 10 minutes in length, but it's called How to Know What We Know. So the idea is that throughout your organization, you have these great ideas, great processes, great practices that could really be used to improve your organization and your overall business, but nobody knows it. So this can really help with the scenario analysis portion of your business case. Again, it's a 4-course series. All of them are short. So this one I featured here is 5 minutes in length. And then this next video is you must ask the right questions to adapt. This can be good if you're kind of getting a focus group together or you're meeting together with a leadership team. Help you thinking about what questions you need to ask yourselves as an organization about how you can get better. So these are just some recommendations. These are all included in the BizLibrary collection, which has more than 7,000 courses, covers 25 different topic areas, and it's set up to where your employees have unlimited access. So if you want to try out any of the resources that I recommended today, you're welcome to do so. If you'd like any of your employees to try them out as well, you can do a free 30-day trial. I'll just put up a short poll and let me know if you are interested. All right, so lots of great ads and questions in today's session. So, Chris, we got one in from Debbie that I'll lead off with, if that's okay with you. I think he's still on mute.
I should say yes with my microphone unmuted, shouldn't I?
Right. So Debbie asks, how do we get the buy-in from employees who think that they're really good enough and don't have time for training?
It's funny because that was the very question I always wanted to start with, too. That's a really great one. Well, Debbie, that's a super question, and I don't mean to stumble over the answer because, but it's not any. It's not. I wish I could. This is one of these deals where I wish I could just like put some fairy dust in an envelope and mail it to you, so you could go sprinkle it on those employees, and they would magically be transformed and into continuous learners. It doesn't work that way, though. Gosh. So, how do you do that? This is really one of the most vexing problems that I've run into over the course of my career, and for most of us. You got these employees who just get into this, I don't know what to call it, if it's hubris or a lack of self-awareness or they get stuck in a rut. Call it whatever you want, but they just won't take the time either. That's kind of what I kind of get it down to, is they won't. It's not that they don't, it's just they won't take the time for professional development, personal and professional development. So you got a couple of ways to get at this. One, you can make it mandatory. Now, you know as well as I do that as soon as you tell people they have to do something, they may go push a button, turn on a video, or turn on a course, but are they really going to be engaged in it, which means are they really going to learn anything? The answer is probably no. You may show a course completion, but is that really what you need? What you need is somebody that wants to learn, right? That's really what it comes down to. And so then that gets you to the next level of this. What is the manager of that employee doing? If the employee thinks they're good enough, what's been the feedback from the manager? Has the manager led them to believe that they're good enough? What's the feedback or coaching from the manager? Is the manager coaching them towards continuous improvement? Has the manager made it clear that, look, I expect you to build your skills and continue to work towards improvement, or I'm going to accept this level of performance and this level of knowledge, and this is just kind of the way it's going to be. It strikes me that that is probably the place to go, not necessarily directly to the employees, but to the manager. That would be where I think you'd get the most bang for your buck. And then explain culturally to the whole organization how critical continuous learning and development is for everybody in the organization. There's a great acronym out there, VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And you can look that up. There's a lot of great writing out there, some wonderful thought leadership about how this this characteristic of the marketplace, this characterization of the marketplace, is impacting organizations and how it's making sort of the culture of continuous improvement and continuous learning so important, both for organizations and for professionals. You look around at jobs that are important in organizations today and think about how many of them didn't even exist 5 or 6 years ago. So how do you train people for jobs that don't exist? Well, unless people are dedicated to continuous learning, they can't. They're never going to acquire the skills necessary for jobs that don't exist, right? So that's kind of the way to get at this. I mean, you have to begin to work at shifting the culture. This gets down to, there's a great comment from Dr. Khan. By the way, some great participation today. But he said success is measured by the customer and employee retention and satisfaction, financial viability, and lastly, contribution to the society. Spot on. And that's a part of what this is about too. How are we contributing, not necessarily to society as a whole, but to the organization, to each other? And if we're not contributing to each other through a commitment to continuous growth, are we not failing each other? And that's kind of a way to get at this from a cultural perspective. We kind of owe it to each other to work at improving, because without that commitment, we're setting ourselves, and more importantly, from the greater good, the organization up to fail. So Debbie, I don't have an easy answer for you. I know that was a long, rambling, roundabout answer, and I apologize for it, but my honest opinion is that is the answer, that's how you have to get at this. You got to figure out a way to communicate to them the value and importance of continuous learning.
All right, I'll go. Great questions today, and again, great ads and comments from the audience. It always makes for a better and more engaging webinar, in my opinion. For those of you that are attending for HRCI credit, I put a link to the completion certificate in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I'll also email out a link to the completion certificate as well as the slides, recording, and follow-up information in an email that you'll get within 24 hours. We host these webinars every week, so I hope you'll join us for a future webinar. Next week's session is on succession planning and the development of your high potentials. You can see all upcoming webinars on our website at bizlibrary.com/webinars. Again, thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you, Chris, for presenting as well.
Thanks, everybody, for your time. We really appreciate it and hope to see you on a webinar soon.